Hope you all are safe and warm during this evening. Today, I am going to start by sharing my screen, and hopefully that works for me. And I think we are good. And Leslie, of course, definitely let me know if there's any chats that come across the the chat. If any questions that come aboard tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about career ownership. I am so excited to dive on into this. Last time I talked, last month, as a matter of fact, I talked about entrepreneurship, and it was a very good presentation. And but this is kind of like the next level. And actually, maybe even this one should be the first one next time, and then we do entrepreneurship. But I love this presentation because there's some entrepreneurial tidbits in here, and we'll talk about that as well. So welcome to career ownership. And as you can see on the screen, we're diving into that overall. The next one, of course, as you can see, the next slide you can see is, yeah, we're talking about career ownership, but do you actually own your career? Do you own your career? And when I say that, I want you to reflect on where you are in your career, and have you looked at your career from an ownership perspective? And if it's not, do you own your career? Let me ask you a question. Does your career own you? Just wondering. And when I say that, does the businesses that you work for, the companies that you have worked for, is there they kind of controlling you to a certain extent? So we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward this evening. Here's the agenda that we'll follow. We're going to talk about all of these topics here, and we're going to actually talk a little bit more about the current state of jobs and careers, especially in light of 2020 and our pandemic. And you might also ask, okay, Peter, what makes you the guru on careers? So no, I did not get a degree in careers, or I did not get any certifications in career management. But what I have been able to do from my own journey is I've jumped industries, careers 4 times, whether it's the military, whether it was corporate sales and marketing, whether it is higher education, or whether it is just entrepreneurship. I've gone from different parts of my life and gone to different industries, different careers for that matter. And as I reflect on how I did that, there were some key things that were successes and some key things that were not. So I'm hoping you're able to pick up on them a little bit, the do's and the don'ts to a certain extent. But before I jump in, I always like to find out a little bit of who is in the room with us tonight. Maybe just give me a shout out of, hey, Peter, my name is Joe Schmo, and I work at this firm right here, or I'm looking for a job, whatever the case may be, if you don't mind sharing, or maybe just you are gainfully employed. Please don't hesitate to share. Always excited. Don't want to be up here by myself, which is why I ask those questions. So if you are listening, and if you can jump on the chat, say hello, introduce yourself, maybe let me know a little bit about what you're doing or something else. Anybody jumping in? One person, two people, three people.
All right, here we go. We have a patron who was furloughed after 23 years of employment with the same company.
Yeah. Hey, welcome aboard. Good to meet you. Thank you so much for being here. As we're waiting for other people to introduce themselves, say hello. Today, actually 3 hours ago, I had talked to a friend of mine, a colleague, and she told me she was also furloughed today. And, you know, I've experienced what that is. I haven't been furloughed myself, but I've been in an organization that has gone through that. And one of the biggest things that I said to myself was, I will never let the organization have that much control over me that I'm caught off guard like that. And can we prepare for that? The answer, I think, is yes. But we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
We've got another one. They said that I'm working for a company for 10 years and looking for a promotion.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's good stuff. And listen, both of those times, 10 years or 23 years, a long time in an organization for today's standards. But we'll talk about the maybe the mindset that you need to have when you if you're caught in the middle of those 10 years or 23 time frames, and what has worked for me, what has not worked for me as well, or and for that matter, what I've been talking with clients and other people who are in the midst of that, looking to shift their career, looking to get the promotions, or whatever the case may be. Let's just look at it overall from a unique perspective. So let's dive on in. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. My name, as I mentioned, is Dr. Peter James. I am currently a business and entrepreneurship professor at the College of DuPage. These companies are part of my journey. I lived out here in the west suburbs of Chicago, got a wife and three girls, and I hate to shovel. So, but yeah, definitely. I was an Army officer for a while, sales and marketing with a large pharmaceutical firm. Even before all these two, I worked at FedEx while I was in college. So I didn't. If you think about that as an industry or career, that's maybe a fifth shift I made. This is my own firm up here, and some academic institutions that I worked for as well. So excited! Thank you so much for sharing yourself. But let's dive on into this. I believe this presentation is so important because if any of us have studied business or read about business, you know that business, the industries, they go in cycles. And we have expansions and booms and recessions and depressions. And why it's important to be aware of that is everything is cyclic in business. And so, therefore, we're going to have a high period of a lot of growth, but then something's going to happen that turns it. And that cyclic period usually lasts, the growth period lasts anywhere from 7 to 10 years. Now, before 2020, we had about a good 10-year growth period. The last one, if you remember, was 2008 and the housing bubble. And a lot of folks learned a lot from that bubble, but we have a tendency as human beings to forget things very fast. But we're in the middle of somewhat of a recession right now. How long it will last? This one, of course, was due primarily to the pandemic. How long it will last, we don't know, but we can learn some things from 2008 and even from right now that you can apply to your own career. And yes, we are still in the midst of a pandemic, and it is shifting everything as we know it. It's shifting what business is going to look like today, but definitely what business is going to look like in the future. So if you're watching and listening, definitely reflect on how your industry has changed or is changing, and then what could possibly have in the future. I pulled this image up just a few days ago from Gartner, and they said that there are 9 future work trends that will occur post-COVID. More employees working remotely. Yes, that's pretty much a given. Increased use of employee data, greater role of the employer as a social safety net, wider use of contingent, part-time, or contracted workers. Critical skills are no longer synonymous with roles. Some find more work humanizing in the crisis, others find it dehumanizing. Crisis response distinguishes top-tier employer brands. They have to be able to respond to a crisis. Organizations prioritize resilience, and then crisis adds to organizational complexities. So these are just some trends, not necessarily careers. We'll talk about careers and jobs in just a little bit, but this pandemic has shifted everything as we've known it. It doesn't mean that it's shifted for the negative, but it's important for us to be aware of where we are going, where we are right now, but where you are going from an employee perspective, but also from an employer perspective. Because let's just face it, this is now our norm. Masks are our norm for the foreseeable future. And with these masks come along a lot of different initiatives that have shifted the way that we've done business in general. We'll talk about what this has looked like in these next few slides as I start to dive into what are some post-COVID careers that you need to be aware of. And as I'm going through any part of this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, please do not hesitate to ask a question, throw out a question in the chat. whether it's the Q&A or the chat, please don't hesitate to do so. I would love to be able to address maybe even some situations that are more familiar to your case, but definitely something that maybe have piqued your interest while we're going through this presentation today. Now, let me make sure that I keep an eye on the time because I can get long-winded. So let's talk about post-COVID careers, which is from cbinsights.com. Yes, you can go to cbinsights.com and find out, what are going to be some of these careers, jobs post-COVID. Some of them you're going to say like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer, but let's talk about them. First one, healthcare. Here are the jobs in healthcare that you need to be aware of. Telehealth technology, continuous and remote diagnostics, teletherapy, virtual fitness and gyms, not so much healthcare, but still falls under that umbrella to a certain extent. And that last one, senior care and aging in place. So if you are looking for jobs in the healthcare industry, these are the areas for the next few years that will definitely be peaking because the jobs will be more robust. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a specific job, but maybe something that's associated or affiliated with one of these 5 areas on the screen as well. So healthcare is definitely one of them. Remote work, whether it's some type of telecommuting technology or enterprise virtual reality, those will be booming jobs moving forward as well. And again, no brainers is around the telecommuting for sure. So just be aware of that. Those remote jobs have already been peaking already. So those of you who are looking right now or just scanning the landscape, just know work from home is a thing, not just nationally, but I'm seeing more and more global work from home jobs for sure. So the pandemic has almost opened up the world to a certain extent. Education, again, very similarly, remote learning technologies, online courses and content. If you're like me, all your classes that you're teaching right now are online. What will that look like in the future? Are you saying it's going to be all online for teaching or instruction or academia? No, absolutely not. But institutions, academic institutions will be naive if they don't realize that they need to have some type of online course component to their umbrella. They must have some type of online teaching or online instruction going on for sure moving forward. As you can see, the libraries have Addison Library has already embraced that as we're doing a lot of these events via Zoom. Good stuff. So education, of course, is going online. Manufacturing, not necessarily manufacturing as you've known it, but 3D printing, industrial automation, and robotics are becoming more and more of a thing. So again, not even necessarily saying to look for a job in those areas, but what is something that may be associated to jobs in that areas as well? Retail, we already know online grocery is a thing. Enhanced e-commerce is a thing. If you are any type of retailer, and again, you don't have some type of online presence and online delivery options, you got to reconsider how you're doing your business for sure. For sure. So retail, this is with some things in the future. Customer service. So whether the chatbots are more and more of a thing for sure, and cloud call centers are more and more of a thing as well. So keep that in the back of your head as well. For those of you who may know they looking at customer service type jobs, maybe they need to get into more technology because AI is coming fast and furious. Finance, here's some themes around finance industry: contactless payments, branchless banking, parametric insurance. Not quite sure what that is, but it made the list for sure. I'll go back to the contactless payments. I know I've just actually yesterday upgraded a lot of the credit cards that I use primarily on my Google Pay. Actually Google recommended that I do that so I don't have to carry cards around with me as much. I could pay with my phone, and that's becoming more of a thing. That's the contactless pay options as well. Those of you who have a Starbucks app on your phone, you know that very well also. Security. Personal surveillance technology is going to be more and more important, and distributed cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is becoming very, very important also. So again, associated jobs around those areas, something good to think about. Then entertainments, social online gaming, virtual events. Most of us know somebody who is an online gamer, and they play a lot. That's a booming business. And of course, virtual events, no brainer. But again, that's going to become a part of our lives moving forward. Last but not least, of course, we are all familiar with this right now because the restaurants have been closed for a little while and they're just now starting to creep open. Restaurant and grocery delivery and cloud kitchens. Cloud kitchens are almost like the delivery services, like the Freshie and stuff like that that deliver meals to your home. Those are becoming more and more of a thing. Again, where are the jobs or the careers around that? So as you reflect on these, think about where you fit in with any and all of these. And you're maybe a career or a job that you had envisioned doesn't fall into something that I've identified, but how could it relate even remotely? Maybe it's the remote technology, the cloud computing, the AI, all of this stuff, the virtual events are going to become more and more of a mainstay. So I'm going to pause really quick to see if we have any questions or comments around that list that I just provided for you all while I take a drink also.
No question, Jeff, but it is good people have found the chat and the QA box. So please make sure you're putting anything in there and we'll make sure to read those to Peter as the presentation goes along.
Awesome, awesome, good stuff. And again, remember, questions or comments about anything remotely related to what we're talking about as it relates to careers, your jobs, past jobs you've had, current jobs, future jobs, how you maybe envision your career going. Feel free. We'll talk about all of those as needed. So, as I've dove into the post-COVID careers, as you reflect on that and where you fit into all of this, I'm a big proponent of don't sit on the sidelines for too long. Don't sit on the sidelines or whatever you're desiring to do. Jump in, because I will say your career, your next job is not just sitting there waiting for you. You have to go get it. You got to go get it. And I like it. I love this screen right here because I love this image right here because oftentimes we'll sit on the diving board for too long and we're prepared. We have the floaties and we have the parachute. We have everything that we need, but we just don't jump in. We hesitate and we hesitate and then we get caught off guard. And then we wish we would. And then if it's us and we do jump in the water, then we were like, why didn't we do this much sooner? And so even my friend who I was talking about today, who was furloughed, she says, you know, I really believe this is the nudge that I should have made this jump a long time ago, but this is now the push that I needed to make my next move. And so I definitely want to have you all reflect on where you are in your career and maybe some moves that you need to make as a result of what's going on around us. It's all a play on shifting your mindset, which I love to talk about. Oftentimes we get stuck in the place that we're at. We get comfortable, for lack of a better word. And it's important that we really utilize what we have, the resources around us, even resources such as the library, to stretch our minds outside of our comfort zone in order to achieve what we didn't think was possible, right? So how is that possible? How can I do that? Especially when I've been raised like this, when my background's like this, my religion, whatever the case may be, I am who I am. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I got a video for that. So here, let's give this one a listen.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
And so what I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, is to actually think differently. I'm actually asking you to rewire your brain so that you're seeing even your career different than you ever have. Because think about it. By us working for somebody, working for a company, looking for our next job, we are one of millions of people who are doing the same thing. We are looking for a job in the same places. We're looking online, we're submitting resumes, we are tweaking our resumes, we're talking to people, we're not talking to people. We're doing similar things over and over again and getting very comfortable doing them. We develop by doing so, we can develop what is called a fixed mindset. But what I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, to do is to develop a growth mindset. And in her book called Mindset, Dr. Carol Dweck talks about these two different types of individuals that you see on the screen. The individual on the right is a fixed mindset individual who says, failure is a limit of my abilities. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I don't like to be challenged. I'm either good at it or I'm not. But the growth mindset individual says, you know what? Challenges only help me grow. My effort and attitudes determine my abilities. I like to try new things. I get excited about other people's successes. I want to think outside of the box a little bit. So what I'm asking you all to do is to really think outside of the box. Think how you've never thought before. What are the possibilities that you've never thought of before that you can actually implement into your career moving forward? And some people also call this somewhat of an entrepreneurial mindset. And while I am not talking about entrepreneurship here, what I am encouraging you all to think of is get the ability to sense, take action, and get organized when situations become uncertain. And I will tell you, 2020 was uncertain for all of us. And some of us struggled with 2020, are still struggling with 2020, and not so much struggling like we don't have a place to work, but a lot of times we're just struggling with the environment. But by sensing, taking action, and getting organized under these uncertain conditions, you are developing the ability to persevere, accept and learn from failure, and get comfortable being in a certain level of discomfort. Because let's just face it, these last few days when the country's gotten hit with a snowstorm, we have to bounce back from that. We have to bounce back from the pandemic individually and collectively. And now those people who can bounce back the fastest will continue to be successful in whatever they set out to do. So maybe it's not entrepreneurship, maybe it's intrapreneurship. And this is a new word for a lot of people. Entrepreneurship refers to a system that allows an employee to act like an entrepreneur within a company or an organization. Entrepreneurs are self-motivated, proactive, and action-oriented people who take the initiative within the organization to pursue an innovative product or service. Many organizations more and more are looking for individuals like this who can grow, help the organization to go to another level, to find new ways of doing business, discover new products, or create and develop new products, or create and develop new processes and services. If you can demonstrate your invaluableness, that's my new word for the day. If you can demonstrate that, you're going to be it's going to be easy for you to find any gig that you see fit. And listen, I'll even talk about this just really quick. Just submitting your resume like everybody else does is not an entrepreneurial type of way. What are some outside of the box ways to find employment that others don't even know about, or don't even know how to do, or would not even consider? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm asking you to do is stop playing checkers. I'm asking you to start playing chess. Be more strategic about your next moves. Plan and strategize what they will be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days down the road, but maybe even 1 in 5 years. Where do you envision seeing yourself in 5 years? Oftentimes we don't think about that. We just kind of go with the flow. I'm telling you, take the bull by the horns and dictate what your future will look like. So definitely shift your mindset. The next one, of course, is identify your passions. I'm big on doing what you love to do. Don't just take a job for a job's sake. In my classes that I teach, especially entrepreneurship, I always ask my students this, and these are usually 18 to 25-year-olds. How many of your parents absolutely love their job? When I say love their job, I mean really are just so deep, passionate about their job. And I might get out of a classroom of 30 some odd students, maybe 1 or 2. And usually those 1 or 2 are parents who own their own businesses. Everybody else is kind of just going through the motions. And so my next question is, I ask my students, is that what you want to be for your career, for your life? And that's when I usually grab their attention about what I'm talking about. But I'm also encouraging you all who are watching here, identify what you really love to do. Identify what direction that might lead you in, what area, what industry. Listen, whatever industry you think of, listen, I always tell students this too, whatever industry or hobby that you can think of, somebody is making money out there doing that. It's just not you. And why can't it be you? So why can't you find that career or job doing that? Yes, it will take a little bit of research. Yes, it will take you looking through databases or going to the library and really diving in a little bit and seeing where the remote jobs are that will allow me to work from home and still do what I love to do. So are you willing to go ahead and dive into your passion? I'm also big on choosing the team around you. The saying goes that you are the average of your 5 closest friends. And I even love this quote by Napoleon Hill right here that says, no individual has sufficient experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure an accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people. No matter who you talk to who has a success in life, they can tell you who has been around them to help support them to get to that successful point. And so now I'm encouraging you, as you identify who are those 5 closest friends or family that you spend the most time with, are they on the same trajectory that you're trying to go? Because if they're not, you might need to attract some other friends who are headed in the same place that you're going as well. So it's important to definitely identify your partners. I call this the HOV theory, meaning that many of us are driving along on the highway in the right lane, and we look over to the left, and the individual or individuals are flying past us. And what's different about these folks over here on the right compared to those on the left? The ones on the left have someone riding along with them. They have a partnership, a team with them, and they're able to go much faster. Yes, you can do it by yourself, but it will go much faster if you have someone around you to be able to assist you with that. And then once you identify your team, the next one thing to do is to identify your path. What direction do you want to go in? So maybe you've identified your passion and you got the right people around you, but now which direction are you headed? This takes a little bit of planning and strategy as well. Which lane are you going down? You know, I've identified quite a few post-COVID careers. What caught your eye and how do you get down that path right there? Listen, there are a ton of directions you can go, even in the post-pandemic society. You just have to decide which one you want to go down. And listen, even when you go down that one, you can pivot a little bit later. Listen, I pivoted 4 times, 5 times, as I mentioned, if I talk about FedEx in college, right? You can do that. It's okay. And it doesn't matter what your age is, how young or old you are. If you want to pursue a goal or career, you can do so. It is in this remote technological world that we live in, anything is possible. Anything is possible. Yes, it will take a little patience and humility, however, ladies and gentlemen. Why do I say that? Because Rome wasn't built in a day, and there is no such thing as an overnight success. Let me say that last one again. There is no such thing as an overnight success. And the media and Hollywood try to portray that, but everyone has their journey and how they got to where they got to. It may not come out front and center, but you dig hard enough, you will figure out and you will find out that the journey, the road was not as seamless as it seemed. So I'm asking to be patient and take your time as you're finding these paths. And yes, it is almost like putting a puzzle together to identify where it is you're trying to get to, but that's okay too. That's okay too. The puzzle, listen, I'm still putting the puzzle together. I'm still putting the puzzle together for sure. Good stuff. Questions or comments before I go to the next one?
Yeah, we've actually got a couple. There was a bunch of just comments saying how much they loved the video and the concept you talked there about that growth mindset.
Mhm.
We shared the link to the book you mentioned, the mindset, in the
Great,
chat.
great.
And then the first question we have is, do you have any resources you would recommend to keep up with the best emerging job trends?
Ooh, Google.com. Honestly, that's the easiest resource right now. The reason I say that is because those job trends lists shift all the time, depending on what's going on the latest. What the latest is right now that we just have going on is this pandemic. And that really is almost clouding almost every one of these lists that you see come out right now. But what I just encourage you to, that cbinsights.com, I've used them before for other statistics like that. I do recommend that if I had to say one. But yeah, other than that, I would just Google, hey, latest career trends in light of the environment in a more technological environment, in a more remote environment, or a post-pandemic environment for sure.
And then the next question says, my current work is very flexible with me. I have 2 young kids. Should I wait until my kids are older before I look for a better job with better benefits and pay?
That's a good question. So I'll give you the Peter James answer, and then I'll give you the maybe the more practical, because I'm the guy that, remember the screen that I showed you with the kid on the diving board. I'm the jump in first and ask questions later type of guy. And I say that because in my career, I have always overlapped in my career, meaning I've never had, I always had one foot out the door, preparing for my next phase. Even right now, I teach at COD, but I am one foot out the door right now. I'm okay with it being recorded. Just because I'm always looking at what's next for me, what's my next goal or my next objective. So in your case, of course, flexibility is great. So now as you envision what that next phase is, don't let the kids, they're going to be the kids, but think about what your next goal or objective is and how can you begin to slowly chip away at that in order to accomplish your goal and put this puzzle together. This flexibility is great, and there are other jobs out there that are flexible. right? And I encourage you to dive on in, at the very least, to begin doing some research, especially stuff around your passion. Maybe your current job is not as, you're not as passionate about it as you desire it to be, but you have something else that you are passionate about. And if you're like me, when you're passionate about something, getting up in the morning is easy. And so why not start chipping away at that passion project? That's my recommendation from that. And listen, being the mom thing doesn't even matter. In our technological world, you could take the phone with you, tablets with you on a regular basis wherever you go, and still conduct business wherever. I conduct probably more business on my phone than I do on any other device that I have. So it's definitely possible. Good questions, good comments for sure. Please keep them coming, especially as questions or comments arise about your situation. Let's continue to put this puzzle together as we move forward. So talked about a lot of areas to pay attention to as you're looking for your next steps. One of the things that I do want you to also pay attention to is distractions. So here's where I'm going with this. We have our goal and we have objectives and we even have that passion career that we've identified, and you want to go down the path, but something catches your attention on the phone and now you're deviating from that path because the Instagram showed you the next hottest something. And in today's society, the shiny object syndrome is always going to be there on the internet, on your phone, on social media, on the news, everywhere you go. I'm encouraging you to do the best research that you can, identify where you desire to go, have that passion around it. And yes, it can change, but if you find yourself changing a bit too much, you're getting distracted. It's already bad enough that life is going to throw at us these roadblocks, hurdles, and obstacles. And we're going to need to jump, go over them, go through them, or go around them. But don't add more obstacles to yourself than you don't need to add. We as human beings have a tendency to do that. We have a tendency to add more obstacles, on more hindrances than we need to. So definitely keep an eye on the distractions and learn to avoid them. A good example of that is I turned off all the alerts on my phone intentionally, because we get so distracted by texts, alerts, and email that it hinders our productivity. Think about that. How many times do you check email a day? And so that time that you pause to check email on a regular basis, or sit there and ponder at it, or look at it, or reply to it, if you could be getting things done and being more productive, reducing those distractions, you'll be better off for it in the long run. Your employer will be happy about that too as well. And then, of course, this next one, of course, is make your move. It goes back to the diving board kid just a little while ago, but you've reduced the distractions, you have your team, you have your passion. Now, but make your move. Go ahead and begin. Go ahead and start. Even if it's making baby steps, just head down that path. Even if it's just doing research, even if it's having dialogue, even if it's going to an event at the Addison Public Library, begin making your move, because someone else is making it and it may not be you. Someone else is doing it. Someone else is taking what probably is yours. And some of the things around this execution will look like this: daily actions, setting up a schedule, just showing up, sticking to it, or focusing on building the right identity rather than worrying about getting the right result. I'll say this: done is better than perfect. And some of us are perfectionists to a fault. I think we have a question coming in, right?
We do. They asked, do employers pay less during the pandemic for the same job?
That's actually a good question. I have not been seeing that. I have been seeing employees paying the same amount for remote workers during the pandemic. I have not seen a reduction in pay. As a matter of fact, if you've been reading a lot of times, the middle class and upper class individuals are continuing to make money and make more money and more individuals. Now, some types of jobs, they are not flourishing as well as others, but what I'm seeing is that most corporate type jobs are paying the same thing, even if you don't have to go into the office. But again, I would be remiss if I didn't say it also depends on the industry as well. I don't know of one that is paying less because of the pandemic. I will say that. I don't know of one yet. Could there possibly be one out there? Sure. I don't know where they are yet.
And we got a second question.
Yeah.
How often should we update our resumes? Should we have multiple versions of a resume?
That's a good question. Yeah, so again, I'm a little over the top with this, and so don't necessarily do as I say, but here's the short answer. I'll tell you about me, and then I'm going to tell you what I recommend. I update my resume definitely annually, and I also update my resume for every single job I apply to. So literally, if I go to my Google Drive right now, you could probably find over 150 to 200 versions of my resume. Why do I do that? Because one size does not fit all. And what one company is looking for is not what another is looking for. So why do you put in the same resume for every single job that you're applying to? Why aren't you tweaking some of the words to make sure that they fit more with that job description than they do just generalizing it? So I'm not saying to lie or fudge stuff. I'm saying to take from your experience and your education and see how that matches up with that job description, and utilize some of that same verbiage for that particular job. So the short answer to your question is yes, but at the very least, tweak it for almost every job that you apply to. Listen, almost every job has at least 20 to 30 people applying to it. Depending on the job, it could be hundreds of people. How do you stand out? How do you stand out in a digital world where everyone's just saying, hey, did you apply online? Did you submit your resume? How do you stand out? You got to figure out ways to be unique. You can't be the same. The same will not get you hired. So what are the small things you need to do to be different? So great question. Great question for sure. So yes, the last one I had was just go ahead and just do it. Go ahead and execute. But even though you're executing, continue to cultivate your garden. No matter what job I would have been and I'm put next year, I'll be 50 years old, right? In all of my jobs, whether I was in the military, in corporate, even in higher education, I continue to apply for jobs. So I told you I have a different resume for almost every job I applied to. I applied on purpose. One, I want to get so comfortable in an interview space that it's just natural. I get so comfortable in an interview space that I'm asking the interviewer questions so that they can answer me back about the job, the company, if I really want to work there. But there's even some psychology around that. I know that the interviewer usually loves their job. They usually love the company. The company wouldn't put someone who's not a homer for the company in front of you. So they love the company. Let them tell you what's so great about this firm. But usually we get so stressed out about, I got to say the right thing, I got to do the right research. I'm not saying that you should not do your research, but what are you doing differently in the interview that no one else is doing? What are the small things you're doing? So yes, cultivate your garden. As I just mentioned, continue to plant those seeds, continue to apply, continue to network, continue to talk to the right people. Even if you've been in the job for 10 years, how are you continuing to sharpen your skills in the job and outside of the job? And oftentimes, listen, companies want us to be sold out for their companies, right? And so I'm gonna make a statement here. Companies want us to be sold out for them. They want you to bleed their color of the company. But let me ask you this: are companies sold out for you? I'm just asking. So this goes back to the whole thing about career ownership. Are they as sold out for you as you are for them, or as they desire you to be for them? And is it very reciprocal? And if you can't say 100%, that 150% that they're sold out for me, then maybe you need to be planting more seeds.
We've got a great question.
Yeah.
Every employer and coworker loves working with me. I have problems talking about myself during the interview. How can I tell people how good I am?
Practice. Practice interviewing about talking about yourself. I mentioned the team and surrounding yourself with good people. Before you go into the interview, practice talking about yourself. Because one of the questions I'm always going to ask any interviewee that comes in my door is, tell me something good about yourself, about why I would want to hire you. And you can't stumble around that. If it's me, I'm saying, listen, I probably bring the most unique experience, background, and education than any other candidate that walks through this door. And they're going to remember something, a bold statement like that, right? So see, now, even with that statement, I'm differentiating myself than most candidates who are interviewing. What else can you say that's very unique? I just whatever the case may be. What about your background is unique that will separate yourself from other candidates, or that will be very unique from whoever they walk in the door? When we used to have face-to-face interviews, and I used to go to interview, I would literally make my resume into like a mini booklet. I would take an 11 by 17 document, turn it sideways, fold it in half, and make a little booklet with a title page, resume front, inside, and then like a little bio on the back. They would all walk away with a booklet of Peter James. Who else is doing that? Who else do you know that's doing that? Every little thing that you can do to separate yourself, especially if you're really excited about the opportunity that's in front of you. So good question. Good question. Practice talking about me. My wife probably says I do that too much, so that's another whole thing. Pivot as needed is the next one. Listen, pivot is a little bit different than chasing distractions. Pivoting is shifting shifting because a pandemic has forced us to shift. And even in light of the pandemic, I want to stay ahead of this shift. So I'm paying attention to the landscape intentionally. I have shifted intentionally in my career. I haven't waited for the company, even when the companies were offering tuition reimbursement, and they said, "Oh, you're not eligible for tuition reimbursement until you've been here for 3 years." I can't wait 3 years. I'm just going ahead to go to school by myself and take out some loans. So I'm never waiting for that company to say it's time to get promoted, or just or the army. I remember when I transitioned from the army to GSK, I said, no other company, I'm never going to wait for a company to promote me based on my time in service. GSK, one of the first things the manager said to me was, wait 3 years and then I'll promote you. And I was like, I could have done that in the military. So how are you being proactive? How are you pivoting in light of the landscape? And I've done this intentionally in my career, and I've done it intentionally because I had a passion. I had some things that I wanted to do, and it ultimately led me to coming to the College of DuPage, where I'm speaking, like I am with you right now. It's allowed me to do some investing and things like that as well, but also I launched my own business so I can do some other things that I wanted to do, some other goals and passions that I wanted to do also. So I have utilized all of these previous companies to get to where I wanted to get to today, and still utilizing them to where I want to get to tomorrow. You see how this is a little shift of the mindset. This is not how the average person thinks about their career. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking for quite a long time. I got to ask you, what does this look like for you? What, and we're all different. So the career paths are totally different. right? But I'm just asking you to take a step back and reflect on all of the stimuli that I've given you in this presentation, and ask yourself, what does this look like for you as you look to increase and improve and get to your next level? As you look to make the shift, to identify your passion and your team and your path, practice patience and humility, avoid the distractions, make your move, and even cultivate your garden. What does it look like for you as you progress down the ladder, up the ladder of your career, as you own your career moving forward? And so now, based on all of these things that I've been speaking about today, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, I want to ask you one question. What one thing can you implement moving forward in the next 10 days? What one small thing can you begin to do in order to begin this process up this ladder in the next 10 days? One thing, one small thing. And I'm going to ask you guys to type in the chat. Could be very small. I'm not asking you to move mountains tomorrow, but I'm just saying, hey, what was one pearl or one gem that resonated that you know that you can apply? Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's something, maybe I piqued your mind to go in a different direction. And that's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to go down that path. And that's okay too. I'll wait a few minutes, see if anybody wants to type it in the chat or bring it up. I'm cool with either. Just want to see one or two people, maybe something that piqued your interest.
While we give people a few minutes to type in the chat, do you have any suggestions for networking or growing that network during this virtual era? It's very hard for people to not have that in-person contact anymore.
Yeah, that's good. You know, networking in this remote virtual world has to be very intentional, even more intentional. So you think about it, before the pandemic, we used to have problems leaving our house in the evening to go to networking events, right? Because we had to leave the house in the evening or after work or something like that. Now it's even more intentional. And there's the meetup.com is a big one where a lot of networking groups are still out there where you can go to for free and meet with like-minded individuals that you can find who may be on your same trajectory. I think oftentimes the library is a good place to meet people at events like this as well. And then just a lot of different small unique things and unique areas, unique, even just Google groups that you can associate yourself with moving forward, so that things change a little bit, so you're not doing things as you always have.
All right, we
Good
got
stuff.
someone who's gonna redo their resume. They loved your Peter James bio, little leave the book behind idea.
Absolutely. That is definitely a great one, because now you can't do it in the pandemic world because all their interviews are remote. But once we do get back face to face, steal that one, please. Steal that one for sure.
All right, a couple more. Join a group that speaks directly to my passions.
Yeah, like that.
And then won't wait for furlough to end to continue to dive back into the workforce.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, next we've got another question. I started working with a VP a year ago. I told him I wanted to advance my career. I have talked to him one more time last year. He told me he liked my experience. I'm proactive and willing to take on stuff, but the business area I'm in is small. Then I wrote my career evaluation. I want to get an opportunity to step up into the manager role. What do you think? Is that a bad sign?
When you wrote your career evaluation, it was the opportunity to step up into a management role. I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm a big advocate of saying what you want. Now, if he's hemming and hawing around, I will say this: think about pivoting. Think about pivoting. Because listen, if I have someone who I'm a fan of who's on my team, I'm talking with them regularly about what the next steps are. If I'm hemming and hawing, that means I'm not necessarily I'm not a fan favorite. So again, my thing is go for it. Go for it. You wrote your evaluation. Let them know what you want to do. Let them know, absolutely. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? So ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to wrap up. So yes, hopefully you were able to think of one thing that you can accomplish in the next 10 days. And I do have to say that, finish off, I talked about chess a little bit earlier. And as you move forward in this career ownership, a new world that you live in now, the question is, do you desire to be the chess piece or the chess player? I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to be the chess player that's moving the pieces around. And I hope and wish that for your careers as we move forward. So if there are no further questions, I'll sit around here, and these are my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Any more questions there, Leslie?
We did get one more comment. They said they're going to make a plan to get into the career path of their passion, regardless of a potentially lower salary they've become accustomed with.
Yeah, absolutely. I will also say this, in every industry I've jumped, every industry that I've jumped from to, I've taken a pay cut. So remember, I told you I jumped 4 times. The reason I jumped primarily, I wanted better opportunities, a better quality of life, and do more of what I was passionate about. Sometimes that came at a cost, but don't get me wrong, I took a pay cut because I saw the vision. So I might have taken a pay cut, but I knew I was going to be able to go back up in a little bit. And so it was somewhat intentional. I gambled on myself. And I think you have to be prepared to do that. Oftentimes we just chase the money. And I'm asking you all to think about more than the money as you begin to make that shift.
We did get one question that I guess I should have anticipated early on. Will you be able to share the presentation slides with our attendees tonight?
Yeah, I could send them to you, Leslie, if that's all right.
That's perfect. Dr. James will send them to me, and then I will send them out to you later this week, along with a link to the recording.
Sweet, good stuff, good stuff. Any other questions there, Leslie? That was good. Good presentation.
Lots
Good
of
feedback.
thank yous and talking about how wonderful you were. And we so appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Good stuff. Great presentation. Great comments for sure. It made me think a little bit. I had to think about, especially the resume stuff. I was kind of getting, should I tell about all my crazy resumes that are out there? But yes, hey, listen, own your careers, own the path, own your path. You'll be thankful that you did. You'll be thankful wholeheartedly that you did. Good stuff.